Okay, what we're going to do now is have a short demonstration to familiarize you with the NetCOBOL for .NET product. We'll focus on setting options, creating solutions and projects, compiler directives, building programs, setting debug and release mode, and finally debugging programs. So let's get started. As you can see, I have Visual Studio 2005 up and running. I'm going to begin with creating a project first. So I'll go File, New, Project, and now I'm presented with the New Project window. I'll choose to create a console application, so I'll click that, and of course I could rename it something. I'll just go ahead and take the default console application 1. I'll take the default location, which is samples, the D samples, and of course the solution name, I'll take that as the default as well. And now I'll go ahead and click OK. And as you can see, our solution, or rather project, has been already created. Now let's go out and see exactly what we've created. Here I am using the File Explorer, and of course I'm in my D samples subdirectory, and I'll go ahead and drill down into the subdirectory that was created under D samples, which is called Console Application 1. If I drill down into that, I can see my Console Application 1.solution file. If I just click on that once, you can basically see that it is a Microsoft Visual Studio solution, and of course my console application subdirectory underneath that. I'll double click on that, and as you can see, I've got some files in there. I've got my main COB file, I've got my console application 1.COBOL project file, and of course I've got another subdirectory for properties underneath that. Now let's go back to Visual Studio, and we'll take a look at the Solution Explorer here. And I'd like you to notice that the project is completely populated with some of the basic or more common reference files out here from the .NET framework that most people would use in order to set their projects up. Now let's expand the source files folder. And as we can see here, we see the main.cob. Now you can add additional COBOL programs to the source files folder simply by clicking on the source files folder and highlighting the folder, and then right mouse clicking on that folder like this. So I'll highlight it, and I'll right mouse click and click on add, and now you can see the submenu under add come up. I have a new item and an existing item, and then I have a add existing copybook. These entries are pretty self-explanatory. One thing I would caution you about at this point, strictly from an organization perspective, is that you should keep your source code files in the source files folder and the copybook files in the copybook folder. That is, if you're going to use that folder at all. Personally, I prefer to set up a compiler directive in order to point to the copybook library. That way I don't have to sort out which copybooks belong to which program. Trust me, that approach makes life a lot easier. Just know that you can take either approach. The same approach works exactly the same way for copybooks. All you have to do is highlight the folder, right mouse click, hover over add, and then you can see, of course, the new item, which would be a new copybook, or existing item, which would be an existing copybook. Now let's talk about setting option. And believe me, there are a lot of options to work with in Visual Studio. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of them. Keep in mind that as you work with Visual Studio, you'll become more and more comfortable with the environment and with the various options that are used in order to configure the environment. So let's go up to the menu bar and choose Tools and then Options. Here is our options window with all of the option categories. As you can see in the environment, we have an option for Windows layout. You can have either tab documents or multiple documents. In the recent files, you can have a given number of items shown in the window menu. You can have a given item shown in the recently used lists. And again, you can configure this any way that you want. You can also show the status bar and have different effects on the behavior of the environment. Again, you can come up here and look at add-in macro security, auto recover. Now this one is an important one. I like to set my auto recover for 5 minutes. Your threshold, your personal threshold will vary. I think 5 minutes for an automatic save is inappropriate. I also keep the automatic recover information for a period of 7 days. That way I can roll back and play with the auto recover information if I need to. Find and replace has some particular behaviors. If you wanted to go ahead and set those, you can also set fonts and colors. And of course, you can also configure the help system, the help menu, and look at any import and export settings, international settings, keyboard, and all of that. Projects and solutions is also very important. If I come up here to projects and solutions and click on that, you will see Microsoft Visual Studio has a set of locations for various kinds of files. So you can have your file set up in whatever location that you want, whatever your corporate standard is or your preference is. You can also set up project template locations, and of course you can have your own user templates that you can place in there as well. Again, this right here, this information right here basically determines how the behavior of the projects are set up. Again, if we go through and look at build and run, this is an area where I would like to kind of point out a couple of things. There are certain activities associated with building applications that you might want to basically set up. One of those would be before building. I personally like to save all of my changes before I actually build any components. And what you're seeing here is save all changes, save changes to open documents, or prompt to save all changes, or don't save anything. I personally want to save everything, and of course that's kind of a judgment call on your part, but I do recommend that you save all your changes. This next one right here is the maximum number of parallel project builds. This really applies only to those folks who have multiple processors. When you run your projects, any projects that are out of date, you can always prompt to build or always build or never build. I have mine set up to prompt to build because I want to be able to have the option to determine whether I want to do that or not. On run, on build and deployment errors, again, I would want to prompt to launch the previous version. And again, you can basically configure that however you want. I personally see no reason to go ahead and just launch the old version after I've gone ahead and made the change. I would want to go ahead and prompt to launch so that I have the choice, and then most often what I do is just go ahead and go into the error list and find what my errors are and then go ahead and fix them. In the MS Build project output verbosity, this is kind of an interesting choice right here. You have the ability to make it quiet, minimal, normal, detailed, or diagnostic. If you're running into some real interesting errors with your COBOL code or any of your Visual Studio code, could be C#, could be VB.NET or whatever, you have the ability to get some rather extensive diagnostic messages out of the various compilers that are out there. So I personally like normal, so I'll go ahead and select that, and now we can move on. And as you can see here, we've got project and solution information here for building and running just as a general set of settings. We have Visual Basic defaults, Visual C++ directories, and Visual C++ project settings. One of the things I have is Visual Source Safe. So my source control is set up to be Microsoft Visual Source Safe, and of course I can configure that as well. We also have settings available for the text editor, and if I click the text editor, I can look at the general category. Again, these are general settings that apply to all of the languages, and then of course I can come down here and drill down into COBOL and look at general information for COBOL. So I can see auto list members, I can look at parameter information. Those things are for statement completion. On settings, I can enable to virtual space. I can apply cut or copy commands to blank lines. Again, I can turn on or turn off the line numbers, and these line numbers are the physical line numbers in the file. They're not the line numbers that you would normally associate with COBOL code. Again, you can set up information on tabs. I have block indenting turned on. I have tab size set to 4, indent set to 4. I like spaces instead of tabs. I just think they're easier to deal with. And then, of course, COBOL specific things. Again, you can have your COBOL sequence numbers. You can open your COBOL source as free format. The practical effect of free format is that the compiler tends to ignore area A and area B constraints. You have automatic sequence numbering in there. You have the automatic uppercase of conversion of any keywords or reserved words for COBOL. And of course, the statement completion is very important. The automatic properties list actually refers to the IntelliSense feature inside Visual Studio. I recommend very, very strongly that you have this particular item checked on. finishing up here, you see we can enter outlining mode when all the files are open, and again, we have a lot of different flexibility in terms of those settings. Now, those are all we're going to cover for the time being. Again, I urge you to spend a little time and explore that. As you can see, there's business intelligence designers, there's database tools, there's debugging, there's information on how to configure for device tools, HTML and Windows Form Designer options as well.